welcome to another episode of Little Acorns to Mighty Oaks. I am your host, Mama Nix, and we have been discussing household habits. This is part 3 in the series. There's going to be a few more, so subscribe. Oh yeah, subscribe. Right, we're just going to get straight into it. This week we are discussing discipline, the importance of discipline. Now, this is quite a hard topic because it can be quite controversial sometimes. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s, kind of telling my age a little bit there. All right, so I grew up in the 80s and 90s where it was cool, like, and expected almost to get slaps as your discipline. So growing up, I got slapped, and I'm still here to tell the tale. I didn't get abused, but I did get disciplined. But I was also the kind of child that you spoke to me a little bit hard and I would cry. I mean, you wouldn't think that because I'm quite tough now, but I mean, at the time I was quite soft. And so I felt like, looking back, I used to think sometimes I didn't really need a slap. You could have just spoken to me. I would have got the point. But because of my mum's upbringing, where she came from, it was expected that you're not listening, you just get a cuff, you just get a cuff in your head. And so, but what she did was she did her best trying not to transfer that over to her parenting. So where she would have got beaten pretty much for everything, she made sure that I had a voice. We would still discuss certain things. We'd kind of reason it out a little bit. Whereas when she was growing up, there was no speaking. There was no time to reason it out. You just do as you're told. Like, do what I'm telling you to do. It doesn't matter if I'm doing it or not. You do what I'm telling you to do. So that she tried her best to make sure that she didn't hand that down to me. And so now, in terms of what I've received, I am thinking about what worked and what didn't work, and so I now parent accordingly as well. Like, so I'm in the UK, and the law based in the UK, I think 2004, it changed from just being able to smack your child, whatever, to you can smack your child. However, you can't leave a mark, and it has to be classed as reasonable punishment. I don't like that definition at all. I don't like the word punishment. When it comes to disciplining your children, it should never be punishment. We prefer to use the word discipline, because that's what it is. You're disciplining someone. A discipline isn't always a bad thing. It should never actually be a bad thing. Discipline is a good thing. Learning to be disciplined. So that's UK law. But the Bible says in Proverbs 13, verse 24, that if you withhold the rod from your child, you hate him. But anyone that disciplines their child and does it, in some version it says betimes, which means like immediately and diligently, like you love him. It's our job as parents to diligently discipline our children. Now this topic can be quite hard, especially when we start talking about rods of correction and stuff like that. Now the rod doesn't have to be a physical smack, but it represents discipline. Like, there has to be some kind of consequence, something that corrects. So this can be talking, it can be removal of like a toy, it could be grounding, it could be so many different things. So don't focus on the rod as a physical slap, but sometimes it actually calls for a slap. Let's not skirt about it. Sometimes the discipline that's needed, the correction that is needed, requires a slap. All right, we all misbehave. And the Bible is full of those kind of examples as well. Real life examples of people that were liars, adulterers, murderers, thieves. And what makes us think that we're any different? However, discipline, because like even the Lord disciplines those that he loves. Those people that did things, there were consequences for what they did. Discipline is not about control. It is not about trying to control the child and trying to control the situation. It is actually about discipleship. So part of our problem is that we just parent wrong. And I'm just going to be honest, because someone has to be sometimes. When our children are angry, we take it as a thing against us. Like, it's a personal attack on us. And it's not. They're just little children that need shepherding. They don't understand emotions and feelings properly. We have to teach them how to deal with them. And if a child ignores our command, sometimes they're seen as cool and, oh, she's just so cute and little bit. That won't be cute and little bit when she's bigger. you'll see it as rude and disrespectful. It needs to be nipped in the bud now. Another thing that we do is we try to reason with our children sometimes, and they can't be reasoned with. They're not even at the age or the stage where they can be developmentally. So we try to reason with them and wonder, like, why aren't they listening? Why aren't they understanding what I'm saying? Why aren't they just doing what I've been asking them to do? I'm trying to be so nice, and they don't understand. They just need an immediate discipline. Even though I say that it needs to be immediate, it can't be impatient. It can't be impatient. We need to learn how to be calm when we're parenting, when we're disciplining. Part of our problem as adults, not just parents, is that we don't see the children as the image bearers that they are. We see them as a problem that need to be fixed. We don't see them as born persons or as like seeds that have everything within them. Like, we just need to create the right environment. Like, we need to give them the watering. We need to give them the sunlight. We need to give them the right food. We need to give them the right scaffolding, like the right experiences, the right atmosphere. Discipline is a part of that. If you had a tree that's growing and it's growing crooked, you have to tie it to straighten it. You have to prune it. You have to cut that. And this is what discipline does. This is what we do as parents, as adults, as part of the village. Discipline isn't always easy. Discipline usually seems inconvenient. I've used this example in my video on Instagram that sometimes I might be sitting down, feeding the baby, breastfeeding the baby, or feeding one of them, and somebody else is just doing something, and I have to stop that thing, which I think is pretty important, to go and do this, to discipline. Why? Because it has to be immediate. I'm going to go through a few things that I think will dramatically help when we're disciplining. Now, I'm still working through a lot of this stuff myself, like implementation wise, but I think that they're all very helpful, and I hope that they also help you. So the first thing is being an authority. We are in authority. God has given us that authority over the children. Like, we're adults. We've been here. We've done it before. I was 12. I was 7. I was 18. I've been all those ages before. They haven't been there before. So it's our job as parents to protect them from certain things, protect them from the world, protect them from themselves. They're dangerous. They aren't autonomous. They have no clue about what is actually dangerous. We have to teach them these things. Proverbs 22 verse 15, it speaks about a child being foolish. Like, foolishness being bound up in the heart of a child. But a rod of correction will drive it far. Like, it will drive it far. Again, let's not dwell on the rod. Let's dwell on the fact that it's a form of discipline, a form of correction. Now, if a child's full of folly, doesn't know what is dangerous, doesn't know what is right, what is wrong, then it's our job to train them. It's our job to correct them. And that's what discipline is. Being an authority. We're not standing on the side making suggestions. Like, I'm telling you that this is what is right. Sometimes that might just mean, when you're being an authority, it might just mean standing and letting yourself be seen. And they say, oh, my parents are here, or someone older is here, and I need to fix up. Sometimes it means separating, like coming in and separating some children. Sometimes it means telling them that that's it, stop, end. There is no more. There's no more discussion. But being an authority is not, it's not like a submissive place. It's, I am in authority and I know what I'm doing here. So let's not abuse this though. Let's not abuse it. First, this should be the first one really, but I find this one really, really important. This is something that I've struggled with for a while. Is parenting in the pause. And this means taking that moment to literally stop, breathe, think about what you're going to say, think about what you're going to do. Was I going to react? If I was going to react, like, you might even need to remove yourself from the situation. Guys, I'm coming back. I just need a few moments. You might need to remove your child for a few moments, give them the time out. Like, but taking the moment, like literally, selah, that biblical word, like pause and calmly think about this. Sometimes it's very hard because of the thing, whatever they're doing. Like, literally, sometimes a child could be scribbling on your wall and they're old enough for you to know, like, for them to know better. Like, you know that they should know better at that age, but they've drawn on your wall. Now, at that moment, selah. Okay, Lord, I need you to help me right now. Almighty Father, I know that you're able. You need to do it, because it's not about reacting. It's not instinct. We're not dealing with instinct here. We're dealing with hearts, and that is hard work. Right, body language is and the use of space is another thing that we can use to utilize well in parenting. So like, what is your body actually saying when you're gonna respond to your child? What are your eyes doing? What are you frowning? Are you giving them the eye? Are you scowling? Like, what is it that you're doing? Are you wringing your hands? Like, are you about to, pep yourself up? Like, what are you doing? Because all of those kind of stuff, obviously, they give a they send a message to your children. We need to learn. Like, we sometimes, when we see our children and they have I don't know, that they're like this, and they look at, we see that they're far away when we're talking to them. We see their attitude and stuff like that, but we expect them to be different. Like, we literally have to be the example of what we want to see. So when we're having that discussion, whatever the discussion is, when we're disciplining, we have to set the example. They are going to follow what we do. In terms of space, this is where you could a lot of the time, we distance ourselves from our children, and that could be emotionally, it could be a physical distance. When we're disciplining them, like, we're so disappointed in them, like, I can't even speak to you, you need to get out of my presence. And that's not a good place to be. But if that does happen, then we need to make sure that we have the reconnection after. Like, I just couldn't discipline you right then, I just, I was really disappointed, but there has to be a reconnection after, because we don't want our children feeling like, they're worthless and stuff like that. But a really good thing to be able to do is like connect, eye connection, like eye contact, putting a hand on the shoulder or something, like, or even or coming down to eye level with your toddler, so you're not like towering over them, and or even having them sit on your lap while you're talking to them. I mean, in the height of a moment of discipline, generally we don't want to do that kind of stuff. We don't want to get close, we don't want to touch or anything like that. It's going to be like, it's like, move from me, get you should know better, and all that kind of stuff. But what we need to be working on is the heart to heart, the heart work, the connection. And so bringing them in, it's going to be quite scary and very different, especially if it's not something that we usually do. They're going to be like, what is going on here? Who is this person? But you'll find that it works very, very well. Because I have a 5-year-old who sometimes struggles with vocabulary, and so will scream. And so if I just hug him, he usually calms right down and is able to just explain everything that he needs. I don't just hug him straight away. Sometimes I was like, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to hug? Do you just want me to listen to what you got to say? And he'll tell me. And the connection there, and I'll come down to his level as well, make sure that we're looking at each other, and he's seen, and that works pretty well, to be fair, in terms of disciplining. Another thing is to understand what's actually going on, like, and asking questions, asking the right questions, and not accusations. Questions are, what did you do? What did you expect to happen when you did that? And how did you want that person to feel? And once you get that answer, it's not for you to like berate them and now shout at them and all that kind of stuff. It's literally, the truth now. You know the characteristic that is present. You know what needs working on. So now it's your job to disciple them through that. This one is a good one for me. So, consequences. Please, parents and loved ones and village, make them logical. Make them make sense. Oh, the child spilled the milk. That's it. You're not going outside ever again. Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. The child's like, why are you overreacting? What? Why? I never get to go outside again? What does that even mean? What do you mean? It doesn't make sense. It's either overreacting and illogical, or it's a threat. I'm going to knock you so hard you're not even going to see tomorrow. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. It's either illogical or an empty threat. That's it. If you don't put that toy down, I'm never buying you toys again. Like, you're going to buy toys, or somebody else is going to buy them a toy. Don't do that. It's an empty threat. Then they know. Then you've given them fuel. They know you're a joke. You're an absolute joke. That's it. You're a joke. I know that I know that you're not even being serious, because what happens? My birthday came, you bought me toys. Someone else came, they bought me toys. Let's be logical. Let's be reasonable. They spilt the milk. There's a natural consequence of that. You have to tidy it up. Like, I might help you, but you're definitely going to start it by yourself. If a child is playing too rough with a toy, they're smashing it, the toy gets taken away. Obviously, you give them chances first. Like, you need to play with that nicely. You need to look after your stuff. If you don't, then it could go away. You give them the warnings. And if they don't listen, then the toy has to go away. We do toy jail. Got a nice little shelf. Goes on the shelf. You can look at it all day. You can look at it all week. It's in jail until I think it's worth it coming down. Another thing is, if you hide it and they're young enough, they'll forget about it. So sometimes it's good. It's actually quite good to have it somewhere where it can be seen, so they can remember the feeling. I want to play with the toy. I was smashing it. Make sure that the consequences are logical, that they make sense. This one's quite hard. Leading your children to confession. So asking them the right questions, and just leading them to actually be able to say sorry. Now, once you've asked them the questions, what is it that you've done? What do you want them to feel? And you're discipling them through that. You might have given them the consequence. You might have not given them it just yet, but you have to lead them to the confession, and like getting them to say the sorry. And this can be hard sometimes because I don't feel sorry. But I don't need you to feel sorry right now. What I need you to do is get into the practice of being sorry, of acknowledging that you were wrong. And so this is where you have to decide for yourself what works for your family on what that confession looks like. What we've been doing is looking the person in the eye and saying, sorry for hurting your feelings, sorry for breaking your toy, sorry for eating your bread, but having to look each other in the eye and say the thing that you did. What I've noticed is that it's hard to do it consistently without actually feeling sorry. And so it's building the muscle. Even if you're not sorry right now, at some point you cannot keep looking someone in the eye and saying sorry for something that you don't actually believe. And so over time, they're going to build up that muscle, and they're going to start to understand what they've done to hurt another person. And when that person says sorry to them for something, they're going to start to understand what it feels like on the other side. So we're building the muscle memory. It's not about necessarily meaning it. Oh, don't say it if you don't mean it. No, say it, because eventually you will mean it. Our last thing is reconciliation. Everything points back to reconciliation. Like the whole story of God and Jesus dying and everything, what he's done is to reconcile us back to God. So our story, our family story, our everyday story, everything is about reconciliation. And so what I do in our home is they go on a timeout until they figure it out. Simple. Like, go and sit down until you figure it out. Because I'm not having children walking around my house, not talking to each other and sneering at each other and giving each other dirty eyes and stuff. I'm not having that. So go and sit down until you work it out. And I've watched my boys more often than not sit down and pretty much beef each other about it, but speaking. No, you didn't listen, and no, you're not listening. Okay, but I said this, and I said this, and I felt like this, and you felt like that, and then they come back to me like, Mum, we worked it out. We both said sorry. I said, oh, have you hugged it out yet? No, I haven't hugged it out. Well, until you hug it out, I don't believe that you sort of reconciled. And so they've got to get to the place where they actually want to physically touch each other. And so that's the one thing that I've instigated. So once they initiated, is that they talk it out and that they hug after. This don't have to be a hug, because sometimes like that might be a bit too intense. Or it might be a high five, it might be a handshake, it might be a spud respect, whatever it might be, work it out. I hope this was all helpful for you. As I'm learning, I'm just sharing as well. So I'm still on this journey. I'm not perfect, but I am aiming for this. I'm aiming for progress. I'm progress over perfection anytime. All right. So one thing I want to leave with you is to remember that discipline is not a one size fits all thing. Like, you might try some of these things and they don't work. So you need to figure out how and what works for your family. Remember, we're not parenting from instinct. We're parenting for discipleship. And that's hard work. And that's where the hard work starts. Know your child, how they learn best and their triggers. and also yourself. Learn yourself, know yourself and your triggers, and put things in place to either ensure that the things don't happen, or as they happen, you can take yourself from the situation, regroup, and go back and disciple. Remember, discipline is discipleship. They are following us. They're going to become little us's. It's not even a word, but I'm going to say it as that. So what we're going to do is we're going to selah. We're going to stop and think about what it is that we're going to do. We're going to take the time to figure out what we actually want and how we're going to accomplish that. If you remember nothing else in this video, remember this, that discipline is discipleship. I believe in you. Have a good week. You can do this. Let's go. Let's go. Love always. Bye.